Okay, so you think you've kind of seen everything the financial markets can throw at you, and then bam, something else
Yeah,
shifts.
another ground shaker.
And this week, it feels, well, pretty seismic, doesn't it? We're talking about Coinbase Global.
The big crypto exchange.
Exactly. And they are now part of the S&P 500 index.
It's definitely news that grabbed my attention. Saw it in an Investopedia piece dated May 12th, 2025.
Right.
And, for anyone listening who maybe isn't deep in the finance world every day, the S&P 500.
Yeah.
It's basically like a list of 500 of the biggest public companies in the U.S.
A real who's who.
Yeah, think of it like a snapshot of the U.S. economy's heavy hitters.
Yeah.
And it's the benchmark tons of investors use,
Mm-hmm. To see how they're doing. So
That-
yeah, when that lineup changes, it matters.
It really does.
And this isn't just like swapping one bank for another. This is the first time a company focused primarily on crypto gets in.
That's the historic part. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it,
Mhm.
how far crypto has come.
Absolutely. So our mission today for this deep dive is to really get into what this means, the significance, the details around it, and what it signals for finance overall.
Yeah, unpack it a bit.
We want to give you, the listener, a really clear picture of why this is such a big moment.
Okay, so let's start with the immediate reaction. That Investopedia article mentioned Coinbase's stock, the ticker's COIN.
Coin, yeah.
It jumped pretty noticeably in after-hours trading on Monday, May 12th, right after the news broke.
Okay, let's pause there. So even before that after-hours surge, the stock was already up, like 4% during the normal trading day.
That's right. The article chalked it up to trade-related optimism.
Okay. What does that mean, though? Was there just general good feeling in crypto? Maybe people were, guessing this might happen?
That's a good point. It's probably a mix of things, right? Maybe Bitcoin was doing well, which often lifts related stocks.
Sure, that makes sense.
Or, yeah, maybe some whispers, some anticipation in the market that something positive was coming for Coinbase, even if they didn't know exactly this S&P news.
Gotcha.
But then, boom, the official announcement hits, and the stock jumps again.
Yeah, over 9% more in after hours. Pushed the price up to levels they hadn't seen since, January?
Since January 2025, yeah. A significant move.
Definitely. And just for context, where was Bitcoin at that point? The article mentioned it.
Right. Bitcoin was trading around $102,980.
Yeah.
It's always interesting seeing how traditional stocks and crypto sort of dance together now.
Or sometimes step on each other's toes. Yeah, it's fascinating. And Coinbase themselves, they reacted publicly, didn't they?
They did put out a post on X, what used to be Twitter,
Right.
basically saying thank you to everyone who helped make it possible. A crypto company joining the S&P 500 for the first time ever.
Acknowledging the moment.
For sure. They see how big a deal this is. Now, the article also explains why there was even an opening for Coinbase. It wasn't random.
Ah, right. The replacement. They didn't just add a 501st company. Coinbase is taking someone's spot.
Exactly. They're replacing Discover Financial Services, DFS,
Okay, Discover. Why are they leaving?
because they're merging with Capital One Financial COF. That deal got regulatory approval back in April.
Ah, okay.
So Discover's basically being acquired, and that takes them out of the index, creating the vacancy.
Huh. So in a weird way, a big merger in traditional banking paved the way for a crypto exchange to join the big leagues.
Yeah, it really highlights those kind of unexpected market connections, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so Coinbase gets this huge validation, this boost. But how were they actually doing before this news? The article had a point that seemed a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah, this is interesting. Despite this major win, joining the S&P 500, Coinbase stock was actually down for the year.
Yeah.
But 17% down through that Monday close, just before the announcement.
Wow, okay, 17% down, then gets this huge news. So it wasn't all smooth sailing for them in 2025 up to that point.
No, definitely not. It adds a layer of nuance. It's not just a simple, everything's great story.
Right. And what about their size? To even be considered for the S&P 500, they have to be pretty big, right? Market cap.
Yep. The Investopedia article, using visible alpha data, put their market capitalization around $50.8 billion.
$50.8 billion. Okay, so that definitely puts them in the ballpark for S&P 500 companies. It's not just about size, though, is it? There are other criteria.
Right. Size is key, usually being among the 500 largest U.S. companies by market cap.
Yeah.
But there are also rules about profitability, liquidity, things like that. Coinbase obviously met those thresholds now.
Got it. Okay, so we've got the what Coinbase is in and the how replacing Discover. Now, the big stuff.
Yeah.
The why and the so what. Why is this such a big deal? A crypto exchange joining a major index like this. What does it signal for you listening?
Well, stepping back and looking at the big picture, it really highlights the increasing acceptance of crypto, or maybe just its undeniable relevance.
Yeah, relevance is a good word.
For a long time, crypto was kind of over there doing its own thing outside traditional finance.
Yeah.
Getting into the S&P 500, it feels like. Like it's being pulled into the mainstream financial system.
Integrated.
Exactly. It's like the S&P is acknowledging, okay, this crypto thing, it's a real part of the economy now.
Can't ignore it anymore.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And there are reasons why now, right? More people using crypto, institutions getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
Coinbase itself is a pretty established player now, a major exchange. And maybe just a broader sense that, blockchain and digital money aren't just going away. They likely played a part in the decision.
So thinking about the S&P 500 itself, does adding a company tied so closely to crypto change the index? Could it make it more volatile?
That's a really important question. Crypto is famously volatile, right? So
Yeah.
adding a company whose fortunes are so linked to that market, yeah, it could potentially inject a bit more up and down movement into the index overall.
Makes sense.
And it definitely gives the S&P 500 more direct exposure to the crypto market, which, sometimes moves based on totally different things than the regular economy, different factors, different risks.
Interesting. So if you track the S&P 500, maybe through an index fund, you might see slightly different behavior now. What about the bigger signal for crypto's future? Does this open the floodgates for more integration?
You could definitely see it that way. Another big step in bridging that gap between TradFi and digital assets.
TradFi, yeah, traditional finance.
Right. It might make it easier for other big established crypto companies to potentially join major indexes down the road. It also kind of tells traditional finance, hey, this industry is growing up. It's becoming part of the furniture.
Part of the financial furniture. I like that. So for you listening right now, the investor, maybe just watching the markets, what are the main takeaways? How should this maybe make you think about your own portfolio?
Well, I think it really drives home how interconnected everything is becoming.
Yeah.
Even if you, personally, don't own any Bitcoin or anything.
Yeah.
The crypto world's influence is growing, and it's showing up in places like the S&P 500.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
It might make you think again about diversification.
Mm-hmm.
What exposure do you have, directly or indirectly, to this whole digital asset space? It's not really off in its own little world anymore.
Yeah, the walls are definitely coming down. Okay, so let's sum up this deep dive then. Coinbase joining the S&P 500, clearly a huge moment.
Landmark event for sure.
It really underlines this convergence we keep seeing, right? Traditional finance and crypto getting closer.
Yep. And this specific move happened because of that Discover Capital One merger. But it reflects Coinbase's size and, more broadly, just how relevant the whole crypto industry has become.
You can't really argue with a $50 billion market cap making the cut.
Exactly. It's a tangible sign of how the financial landscape is shifting.
Yeah.
Fast.
So thinking about that shift, it leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? If Coinbase is in now, how else might these big indices like the S&P 500 keep changing? As totally new industries, new kinds of assets become major economic forces.
That's the big question, isn't it?
What's next? What other sectors that maybe seem kind of niche today might we see represented in these benchmarks in, say, 5 or 10 years? Definitely something to chew on.